Hello. The other day we were working on a Grundig 2x4 Super of the V2000 format, and get into a little bit of trouble with the cassette carriage. So I've taken some of it apart. I'll show you what I've done, and hopefully we can get this retimed and put back together. We've been referring to an article in Television Magazine, October '84, and it tells us a bit about taking the cassette carriage out and refitting it. But our problem is not just the cassette carriage, but also the gears that drive it. So I'll tell you what I've done. It says in the article that you take the front flap off. Well, I've slightly abbreviated that. I've taken the spring, I'll show you the spring, off one end. There's a spring there, goes around here. I've taken that off and just eased it out of the way. Otherwise I have to take this circlip off, and I don't really want to do that. Then we've taken the carriage off. We do have the slight complication of this here rides inside this lever, so I had to wiggle it free. And we also have a complication that this switch underneath is difficult to disconnect. So we'll just ignore all that and park it out of the way for a moment, because what we're interested in is what's going on down here. This is our problem. This drives from this end. It engages with these racks and drives it up and down. And this article in Television Magazine tells us how to connect these racks to this. But what we first need to do is get this timed with the mechanism below, because where that sits in, I think, is going to be relevant. So this is the rack beneath that does the driving. Let me see if I can get that to you. This rack here provides the up and down drive. So by turning the loading motor, which is the big belt on the motor beneath, which you would have seen me doing the other day. I won't do it right, won't turn it over now. But I can feel the big motor with my finger, it's right there. If I turn this far enough in, eventually what happens is these teeth engage with drive to this gear, and that gear drives the lacing mechanism, which laces the tape around the head. So we need to get into the fully unlaced and fully ejected position, which is fully out here. And you know when you've arrived there because there's a micro switch on the other side. I wonder if I can get you to see that without everything falling over. Well, just winding it by hand, it does seem as though it's correctly at the top where it should be at the top and going down when it should be going down. But in doing so, I find that this rack here is running out of teeth one tooth early compared to this. So I think the rack is one tooth too low. It may be a design feature that's confusing me here, because if you engage this carriage such that the first tooth on its rack falls into the place of the first tooth on this gear, then when you get to the end of the rack, when it's fully down, you actually still have one more tooth on the end of the gear here. So there must be more teeth on the gear than there are on the rack. So that's just confused me. So I think this is the correct location now. It just sat there Right, so if I push down on here, because there are no springs at the moment, and work the gear beneath that big belt, I think they are correctly engaged. It's just somewhat confusing that I'll run out of teeth on this rack before I run out of teeth on the gear it's meshing with. Let's show you as I get to the bottom. Oh, I've gone even further adrift there. I've got 2 teeth left over, so that can't be quite right. So I just need to get that timing right, don't I? Rack from the teeth, go down 1 tooth, then start from there. Is that where it should go from? I've still got an extra tooth. I just don't understand. Can you see that? There's 1 tooth left. I'll try and set you up. It's really awkward. We still have 1 tooth left on this gear here, but no more teeth on the rack to engage it with. So the exact alignment of those two is a bit of a mystery. After some battling with it, I think that's right. So I've refitted this spring on this end, and I've just got it in the eject position now. And if I drive it down, not going the wrong way, down, the front door closes properly, and it would normally get stopped at that point by the front panel, which is presently off, the front cover, and then when it reaches the bottom, it starts to lace up. So I think that's correct. All I've got to do now is put those springs back on, which is fiddly. Those springs that are disconnected earlier, they need to be found. They'll be rolling around down here and hooked back up onto the posts here and here. This is not going to be easy. Okay, well, I've just fished the other spring here up with this dentist pick. It wasn't that hard at all, actually. So just hook it onto the post there. Okay, 2 springs back in place. So now we can try the cassette carriage. First thing I'll do, I think, is manually wind back up to the top so it's in a sensible position for power up. Doors opening. It's arriving at the top, hopefully at about the same time as that switch. Yeah, hopefully about the same time as that switch in there. So we can see this is travelling along, and it's about to meet these switch contacts here. There. Hopefully that's in a properly ejected position now and is ready to accept a tape. Wish me luck. I've had enough of this. It's certainly horizontal. Everything looks right. Cass, that's correct. Does it take a tape? No. What is it playing at? It didn't drive down. I'm going to manually drive it down. No, we've become disconnected here. Oh. Yeah, we've become disconnected, so this is turning and the carriage is not. Oh dear, so something's mistimed again. I've released those springs again, so this is free to move, should be. And I'll see if I can re-engage it properly. Alright, try it once more. Oh, it's found some other reason to not work now. Just running the real motors. What's the reason for that? Okay, put a tape in. Play. Okay, it worked then. I think we'll leave that problem alone for the time being. We've got it working, in a manner of speaking. So I want to look at the problems we were having with black and white picture, and I might start by just changing the Chroma board. Now there is some information in Television Magazine about what can cause this problem, but I think it's useful to at least isolate what board we're on first. Right, so I'll do a little bit of reassembling because I know this machine doesn't like running without the bottom panel on. So I'll fix that and then we'll have a look at that board. Okay, I have a tape here with a known colour recording. I've just checked this on the machine downstairs. So let's just check it here. Why is it doing that? So it's not taking the tape in, but once the tape is in, it's okay. If the unload switch doesn't close, the machine won't accept a cassette and the real motors will rotate all the time. That's exactly what's happening. So it could be the unload switch. That's, I think, the switch on the loading ring. These contacts here operate by making contact with little brass segments on the loading ring. So I'll clean that up. Let's see if that's any better. Now what is happening then? Is the loading motor spinning when I put a tape in? Oh, now it works. You never know what this machine's going to do next. Okay, let's ignore the loading problems for a moment and just try and sort the colour. Right, we should be able to play the tape. Oh, we have sound trouble again. I believe that's an earthing problem. We're going to ignore that. Right, because that went away when I had all the screws fitted to the base last time. But I know this is a colour recording and we're not getting colour on that. Alright. So let's just swap out the Chroma board with the one from the other machine and see where it gets us. If it's easy enough to remove. There we go. Right, let's swap that over. I have had some information in Television Magazine about possible crystal trouble on this board, but let's just first find out if we're in the right area. In my right hand is the one that came out of the machine. In my left hand is the one that came out of well, maybe scrap machine, but you never know, we might be able to fix that one day too. Okay, I've swapped over the Chroma board. Let's just see if we get colour now. If we don't, we've got bigger problems to solve. No colour. So either we have two faulty Chroma boards, which is relatively unlikely, or there's something else wrong. Oh, we have colour! We have some colour! That's interesting. Odd how the problem remained and then improved. And I'm seeing this line at the bottom, which I think is a head switching error. So we might want to adjust that and see if that helps. But it's still a very grainy picture. I don't know if you can see that, but it's pretty noisy. Let's hit stop, which is freeze frame. It'd be helpful if it actually did stop and did that stably. And we could see if the noise keeps moving. There is actually slow motion on this machine, I think. Yes. Or rather, it's stable on slow motion, but not in stop. It's finally stopped. And the noise seems to be a mixture of both frozen and moving noise. some of which is on the original film, I can tell. So that's very yeah, it's hard to pin down exactly where that noise is coming from. Is it on the recording? Is it just because of the format? Maybe I'd need a better recording. Fundamentally, the machine is now working of sorts. Let's see if we can make a small adjustment to the head switching point. I'm not quite sure how to do that on this machine. Just want to do a tiny adjustment to see if we can move that noise off the bottom. Before I go too far into looking for the head switching point, I'm inclined to try a different Luma board, just in case that's where a lot of the video noise is coming from, because it's easy enough to swap that over. And it could make the Chroma more stable too. So let's swap out this panel as well. That's a reasonably easy thing to swap over. Of course, we don't know if these boards are any better, but I just wonder if that's where some of our noise is coming from. Let's see if the picture looks any different. It went straight into colour this time. It still looks grainy. Does stop work any better? No. Okay, that looks pretty much identical to the other one. So there's nothing wrong with the Luma board anyway, as far as we can tell. I've just noticed some odd behaviour on this machine. It's switched on here, and it can go into play, and that's all completely normal. And we have a reasonable picture. Let's stop. But where things are wrong is if I switch it off, it is not going back to the clock display. The on-off switch is doing something, but not that. And similarly, if I'm in play, and I switch it, that's just not right. It went into play when it was in the off position. That shouldn't happen. And then when I switch it on, it switches off. Have I got a switch set wrong, or is there a fault? Because the machine is working, but when I switch it off, it continues to work. But when I switch it back on again, it will go into stop. So the switch is doing something. That's really odd. Maybe just bad contacts on the switch. I'll clean up that switch in a minute. It might be that some of the contacts are working and some not. Well, just metering out the switch, it's only a simple 2-pole changeover switch. From what I can see of it, everything's behaving properly. So, what's wrong? It's not a showstopper, the machine works anyway, but it's just very odd that when you switch it off, it stays on. V2000 experts, ever seen that fault? Well, I just don't know how to adjust the head switching point on this machine. On some video recorders it's electrical, on some machines it's mechanical, and on some machines it's both. There is a opto sensor for the head, but I think that's permanently mounted on the head drum, from what I can see, so that's not something that can be adjusted. So it must be an electrical adjustment, and I'm guessing it's on the motor driver board at the back here, but I just can't fathom it out. The manuals are in German, and even with a translator I still can't work out where the head switching point adjustment is. If you know, please let me know. We may still have this problem that when I put a tape in, it doesn't accept the tape, but once it's in, it seems to work. So should we have a little bit more of a look at that, but I may have to stop on this one soon. Let's see how far we go. So we'll just check it's working. That's all fine, apart from this noise at the bottom, which we're unable to resolve right now. So I believe I can eject the tape. Okay, it's creeping out because I've still got too much of that sticky grease on there. But everything at that point is correct and normal. But when I go to put a tape in again, will it go down? I think not. Oh, it did. It's working fine now. Play. That was absolutely perfect. And go through the sequence again. You can see that sticky grease is handing the tape back too slowly. That's working a treat. Okay, I think I'll take a little bit more of that grease off so it ejects better. But if you take all the grease off, then it'll fire the cassette across the room, which is not ideal. You can replace the grease with new grease. That's one way of doing it, and I might do so. But let's just clean a bit more of that off and see where it gets us. Okay, I've cleaned off some of the grease. Let's see where that gets us. So, it's accepting the tape okay. I think that's about right. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. So let's see if now I can put the screening can on the top of this without messing up the carriage as happened last time. You do need to ease the front out of the way. And super care with that back that it doesn't crumple up the cardboard on the motor controller board. Seems just about perfect. No, something's gone wrong. Oh! Something's colliding this screening can. Do that again. You can see when it lifts, it's hitting the screening can. I don't know why that is. Play. And one thing we do have wrong, well, apart from some slightly weird things happening when I switch it off, it carries on playing. That shouldn't happen. And then when I switch it on again, it stops. That's just, there's something adrift there. But it doesn't matter, it doesn't stop the machine being usable. The slow motion's working. Or was earlier. There we go, slow motion's working. But freeze frame, which is labelled stop, usually does that. So it's got some minor dynamic track following failure there. But play sorts itself out. And picture search. I think it's okay. It doesn't, in general, the picture search doesn't work as well on these machines when it's playing a tape recorded on another machine, I've found in the past. So the DTF in general is not as good as it might be, and we have that head switching noise. Do you think I should borrow the DTF board out the other machine? I mean, I've borrowed 2 boards, albeit I've put one back already. I suppose I could, couldn't I? So that's DTF there. Okay, I might regret this, but I'm going to borrow the DTF board out the other machine, at least get a feel for whether we have issues on that board. Okay, there's no absolute guarantee that this will be the correct board, because in general on V2000 machines they were always making changes. Perhaps Grundig were less guilty of that than Philips. In fact, look who built the chip on this. That's a Philips IC, isn't it? Yes, it is. Okay, let's give that a whirl. The head switching point's in the same place still. Let's try picture search. Similar to the other one, maybe a hint better, but not really. Reverse picture search. Pretty similar. Slow-mo. That's working fine. So let's try stop. Aha! Oh, is it? No, it's doing it again. Just a little bit better on this. You wouldn't say the other boards, you wouldn't describe the other board as faulty, given that this can do the same thing. But if you go from play to stop, it tends to do that rolling. But if we do a bit of slow motion first and then stop, then it tends to stabilise. So it's just a tiny bit better with this board. But the fault lies somewhere else, probably. Yeah, you can get it to stop freeze frame. So since this board seems to work just a tiny bit better in this machine, I think I'll leave it in here. Right, and as for the noise I keep complaining about, it's a bit difficult to say, because when I do a freeze frame of that, I don't see a particularly large amount of noise. Much of the noise appears to be on the original recording. Yeah, it looks like it's on the original recording for the most part. So I'm not going to condemn it for that either. I think we may have a fully working machine here. I'll just make sure that the sound is good when I've refitted the screws in the bottom. And I would like somebody to help me with that head switching point problem. Right. And we go eject. And it's working, but it keeps hitting this. And then it gets stuck. You know, there's something not quite right here, isn't there? That it's getting stuck sometimes. Right, let's do a bit of reassembly. Okay, just test to see that the sound is good as well. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the sound. Right, so one thing I want to check is whether we have good playback at the very end of the tape, because these machines can lose back tension control at the end. And I've had some information on how to fix that, but it's a little bit non-trivial. So let's just see if this machine, by good luck, won't have that problem. So it's a 4-hour tape, so we'll wind it to within about 10 minutes of the end of the tape and see if it looks like a nice steady result. Okay, we're close to the end. Oh, that's a bit unfortunate. There's nothing on the tape. We'll have to try a different tape then. Oh, now we're having another problem. Why is it whinging on? Heaven's sake. Don't know what that was. Never know what this machine's going to do next. It's always bad. Right, let's try this tape towards the end. Let's hope there's something on this one. Yes, there is. And it looks like it's playing properly. When you get insufficient back tension, the picture keeps just looking terrible, jumping around and mistracking. So that one looks to be controlling properly. Picture search towards the end. No, that's working. That really is. But I'm having problems with the cassette carriage. Some of the time it works fine, other times it doesn't take the tape in properly. or it doesn't stop the unloading cycle. I don't know what that's about. But you can load a tape in again by power cycling it. Okay, so it's a little bit quirky, but fundamentally is working. And I've fitted the sharpness control onto this one now. And freeze frame, yep, freeze frame's working. Right, I'll stop there for today. I've got other things to do. I hope you enjoyed us working on this V2000 machine. I know it's been a little bit rushed. I didn't go down to component level on whatever's wrong with the Chroma board. We know we still have a somewhat finicky front loading system, and the head switching point doesn't show on that particular image because it's off the bottom of that particular screen, but the head switching point looks like it's a shade out. But other than that, it is a working machine, and it's good enough that I could use this to transfer tapes if I needed to. So it kind of, you know, it's done really. Oh, and there's a cosmetic panel missing off the end, which I may or may not bother to take off the other one. I'm not even sure how or if that comes off, and that's just head clogged. That's what V2000 looks like when it head clogs. As for the spare parts machine, well, it's not complete scrap, is it? The only serious fault we have with that one is something wrong with the Chroma board. But there's a potential to get another machine out of that one. Right, I hope you've enjoyed what we've done here today. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. And of course the other really weird thing about this machine is that it doesn't respond properly when I switch it off. I mean, that is just the weirdest thing.